So this is the Waveriding Whirl catalyst, which is an event exclusive 4-star weapon. It will not be available in this animation. So this is a trick. That doesn't mean it's exclusive to an event, like an in-game event. You can tell because this sword here says it's an event exclusive, but it's how to obtain from event. This sword is what we'll be getting from the event, whereas this is how to obtain from wishes. So they have like the similar wording here, but that means this is a limited 4-star. It basically means it's going to be on the weapon banner. What character do you guys think this is designed for? What character do you think this is designed for, just based off first impressions? Because I think I want to look into how this performs with Kokomi, but I can't tell if it was designed for her. Yeah, Kokomi is the immediate one that comes to mind, to me at least. I don't think this is fully optimized for her, but we can take a look at it. And luckily I still have my old calcs that I did with the old monohydro team, so we should be able to just plug in the details here and then see how good it is. I don't have Farina in here, but I don't think Farina would change the weapon differences much, because prototype amber, it gives HP, which doesn't really interact with Farina, and this also gives HP, which doesn't really interact with Farina either. But you need to factor in that just because this weapon is a 4-star doesn't necessarily make it cheaper than Kokomi's signature weapon. If it ends up that this is worse than Kokomi's signature, then that could be very scuffed, because it might not even be more realistic. Why would you need that much ER in monohydro? Well, that's what makes me think it's not really designed for Kokomi. And also, as we'll get into, just because this gives HP, and it gives a lot of HP, but just because it gives HP doesn't necessarily make it good for Kokomi either. It might be good, we'll find out, but there is more to Kokomi's kit that meets the eye. Okay, Waveriding Whirl. So we'll do R1 and then we'll do R5.
A few moments later.
It's basically the same thing. Like, you can say it's like slightly less, but it's basically the same thing. And the reason why is, I mean, even though we're getting slightly more HP, you can see here I'm getting like 5.9k from the passive versus 5.5k from the weapon substat. Because prototype amber, you get the HP in the weapon substat directly, whereas the new weapon, you get the HP in this thing here. So even though you get slightly more HP, in fact, because prototype amber has slightly higher base attack, even though Kokomi's like attack scaling is in most situations is meaningless, it's not going to make a difference. She obviously is not like a proper attack scaler, but because you're getting barely any HP, that 3% HP is almost cancelled out by the base attack. And if you look at the passives, I mean, you get energy from prototype amber, but then you get just straight up energy recharge from this. So they both kind of don't really have any energy issues. So these are the Kokomi's talents. And in fact, like, she's not fully a HP scaler. You get attack scaling here. This is the healing, but this actual damage is also attack scaling. Her HP comes from this, which is like the additional HP as damage, is what Genshin usually words these kinds of things. Increased based on her max HP. And then, this will be important later, but you get extra damage based off of her healing bonus. And it's very important to remember that. This is actually a lot of her damage, but it's based on neither HP or attack. Now, you could say that this extra healing to your party that you get from Prototype Amber makes a difference with Farina. Kokomi's healing is more than good enough. Whether you're using Prototype Amber's passive or not, you're probably full healing your team anyway. Yeah, see, you're maxing attacks very quickly, even if you're not using Prototype Amber. So I don't think it's a big deal to factor in the extra healing you get from Prototype Amber, honestly. It can do something, but it's not gonna, like, it's not gonna be a make or break. Okay, so that's just R1. So we can look at R5. Bear in mind, this is like a limited banner 4-star. So not many people are even gonna get R5, but we can look at it anyway. And also, as I said before, you don't really know how much it increases by. Some of these weapons can double their passive stats with max refinement. Some of them don't fully increase, but we can look at like double just for the sake of it.
A few minutes later.
So here we go. If I double it, it becomes 8% better than Prototype Amber. So someone asked, isn't 8% close to the donut? Yes. So 8% actually is very similar to the moonglow, which I don't know if people are surprised by that, because moonglow does give you healing bonus, which is very important because that increases the scaling that you get from those extra hits. Yeah, so if you look here, okay, this is prototype amber. The healing bonus talent doesn't really change because HP doesn't affect this. Look at the new Waveriding Whirl, that also doesn't affect it, but moonglow does affect it because moonglow blasts the healing bonus, which means even if you aren't getting as much HP from moonglow, you can see here like you're getting, if you have refined 5 Waveriding Whirl, and if it is doubling the numbers, you're going to get a lot more HP, which can increase the survivability. You can argue that increases the survivability, but a lot of that is cancelled out by moonglow buffs to the healing bonus. And I'm also assuming that the rotations aren't going to be an issue, because obviously I have to take some like creative liberty and assume that you're going to be playing around this elemental skill, which is also a bit of a factor. Like say for example that you don't have 100% uptime, then that would mean you're actually losing like 20% HP at a time. So honestly, like saying it's 99% and saying it's 108% is very generous, because I'm assuming that you're not losing some HP here and there, which you probably will be. Whereas like prototype amber is pretty universal, and then moonglow is also pretty universal. There's less restrictions on them. Drinking horn is good because it is doing something, and the other weapons passives like don't really do anything.
A few inches later.
7%. So yeah, just in this rough calc, I'm getting the ash-graven drinking horn, which is an old event weapon, as itself being 7% better. And this would be higher. If I calc the team with Farina instead of Xingqiu, then you'd benefit even more from this, and it would be slightly higher. So let's say it's slightly higher than 7%. That would make it catch up to what we're calculating with like Waveriding Whirl, and even like what we were calculating for like Everlasting Moonglow here. So yeah, honestly, overall it's a bit disappointing. I don't think it's like worth going for. I definitely don't think it's worth going for. And it's not because it's bad, it's just not because it doesn't really do anything. If you were playing this event in 5.0, you would have this, and this is basically as good as all the other good weapons, assuming you can hit the enemies in this AoE. Maybe you don't hit the enemies in the AoE, but even if you don't hit the enemies in the AoE, as long as you're not suffering from energy issues, because this weapon doesn't give the other energy solving stuff that the other weapons give, this is only a bonus. So if you lose out on this, then it's like the same thing. So you could argue, yeah, look, so that's not an amazing AoE. So you could argue this weapon is also like restricted or conditional, because is assuming. So for it to be as good as like her signature or R5 of the new gacha 4-star weapon, you'd have to assume that you're hitting that with that fully, which is not like unrealistic or anything. It's just, it is conditional. Yeah, and I would also add that this is conditional as well. Again, like you only get it for 10 seconds after using the skill. You also, like, ideally you are playing mono hydro teams with a bunch of hydro teammates, but you could argue that this is like forcing you to play that. So if you wanted to like mix up our teams every now and again, switch out a teammate here and there, then it might not work properly, whereas other weapons would always work the same. You could say out of all those 3 weapons, yeah, out of Drinking Horn, Waveriding Whirl, and Everlasting Moonglow, you could say that Everlasting Moonglow is the least conditional one, but it's not like the damage is higher, and also it's not like it's amazing, and it's still like a 5-star. So you know what the conclusion is? The conclusion is it's still just get C1 on Kokomi. If you want to get something to strengthen your Kokomi, just get C1. Or, you know, get Farina's C1 or Farina's C2. Something like that. Or Aqua on Yelan. So I wouldn't go out of my way to get that. Just like I wouldn't go out of my way to get any Kokomi weapon. Just use this event weapon, or just use Pearl of Amber and get other stuff. And yeah, I think the conclusion still is like get the constellations on the characters. You can get like Kokomi C1, you can get a weapon for Yelan, you can get Farina C1, maybe Farina C2. There are like 5 different things you could get before investing in a Kokomi weapon. Even if you want to invest in Kokomi herself, you can still get the C1. And that would be way bigger of an increase. Like I said in my calcs, like here, just for example, 24% compared to like the 8% that you'd get from like 3 different weapons. That's like triple the value. Let alone the fact that getting weapons or constellations on the other characters can be as strong as Kokomi C1, if not even stronger.